Idaho Drinkerinos, it's a very special episode of the Idaho Booze Podcast with me, Steve Kuntz. In this Black Friday edition, we are talking all about stout. I'm going to spend an inordinate amount of time on perhaps my favorite varietal beer with a very deep dive into stout variants, including an attempt to rank them from best to worst. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I haven't even tried. I don't know what's going to be worst. What's going to be best? I like them all. Plus, Epic Brewing just launched its hugely successful Big Bad Baptist lineup, and we're going to go over it with none other than Epic head brewer Clay Turnbow. It's a big, bold show with understated notes of humor and just a touch of coffee on this Black Friday edition of the Idaho Booze Podcast. This show is brought to you by Boise Beer Buddies. Going out for beers has become very pricey. With some breweries charging $8 a pint, you need some way to offset that cost while still going out and drinking beers. The secret code to drinking cheap in the Gem State is the Boise Beer Buddies card. The card, and now an amazing Beer Buddies app and digital card, grants you access to hundreds of dollars in savings every single day at bars, restaurants, breweries, and tap rooms all across the state. The best part is the cost. It's only $25 a year. And if you're a listener to this podcast, then you know we got you covered, along with your favorite drinking buddy, with 2-for-1 Boise Beer Buddies cards using my promo code BOOZEPOD. Let's face it, you're already buying the beer. Now be a buddy. Get your Boise Beer Buddies membership today at boisebeerbuddies.com. Use promo code BOOZEPOD at checkout, all one word there, BOOZEPOD, and get a free year-long membership when you purchase one. That's promo code BOOZEPOD. Be a buddy and sign up for Boise Beer Buddies today. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Kuntz, and it is Black Friday. So let's talk stout. Man, where to begin? So first of all, I don't think there are any other beers. I mean, IPA is kind of creeping up on it, but stout has so many different varieties. Oh my God, there's so many different kinds. Just off the top of my head, there's dry Irish, there's like kind of an American standard stout, there's an oatmeal stout, there's kind of a sweet or milk stout, there's coffee stout, there's imperial stout, barrel aged imperial stout, and now we have these pastry stouts, these dessert stouts. So there's so many different kinds of stouts out there. How do you choose which one to pick? I mean, when you're at the store, you go with a dry Irish. I mean, that's a classic like Guinness, just an awesome beer. You can't go wrong with Guinness. It's 4.5% alcohol. You can drink a bunch of them. It's a fun beer to drink, right? You open it up, it pops. You have to pour it in the glass really fast. Super fun to drink. There's American stouts. We've talked about it on this show before. Black Cliffs from Boise Brewing. Awesome beer. Just roasty and kind of dry and kind of bitter and just like a nice like beer, just a nice stout, not too heavy, not too boozy, just right where you like it. Oatmeal, I mean, what's more comforting than oatmeal cookie? I mean, you get that oatmeal stout, especially if it's a good one, like 825. We talk about it with Clay coming up. 825 from Epic. There was that one from Anderson Valley. It's also really good. A couple of different milk stouts out there. Really, really tasty. And then, of course, with the sweet or the milk stout, you have classic milk stout from Left Hand, another great beer. Coffee stout. I mean, you got all these. There's a ton of those. I mean, we've seen them all kind of out there before. We have breakfast stout from Founders here in Idaho. That's a great beer. Imperial stouts, there's a ton of those. 12 gauge from Payette comes to mind. Black Cauldron from Grand Teton comes to mind. Then barrel aged Imperial. I mean, those Dark Stars and all those great barrel aged beers. And the pastry stouts, I'm not really a big fan of, but I mean, I know people like them. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today with Clay, are some of these pastry stouts and sort of what we think about them. I think him and I are on the same page with that. Like, they're just a little much. I mean, they're 15% alcohol and they're super sweet and they're super yummy and tasty and just, I don't know. It's just a lot for me. So I go with the barrel aged Imperial. With stout, there isn't another type of beer that lends itself to such different situations as stout. Like, if you open up a Guinness, that could mean you're just partying with your friends at the pub. That could mean that you want something kind of roasty, maybe like you're camping, you want like a morning beer. I don't know. Like, Guinness can mean so many different things. And then when you open up like a barrel aged Imperial stout, that's going to be a special event. I mean, you're opening up a bottle that now costs upwards of $30 for a bottle of beer, or you're opening up a bottle from your cellar that maybe you've kept for a couple of years. It's going to be a special event. So with like yesterday, Thanksgiving, I'm sure many of you out there opened up a really nice big barrel-aged stout to kind of celebrate the end of Thanksgiving with everybody. Why wouldn't you? It's just an awesome beer to open up, especially when you have a bunch of friends over. They're usually bigger bottles. Now they come in bigger cans. So like all these Big Bad Baptists that we have later on with Clay, they're all in 16-ounce cans. So that's kind of fun. Now 16-ounce cans lends itself a little bit more to you and a buddy as opposed to 22-ounce bottle, which meant like maybe 2 or 3 people, or a really long night and a really rough morning. I mean, it could go either way. So you really can't say the same about any kind of other beer except for maybe like a high-end Belgian sour. I mean, there's no IPA that you're laying down in your cellar for a long time. Lagers, no, you're not laying any of those down. Only stout. And that's why I wanted to take this kind of Black Friday. We have a couple different Black Friday events going on in Idaho. I know Payette usually does their Black Friday event out there at their brewery. And then I think Brownbeard is doing an event where they're revitalizing Crooked Fence's Sins of Our Fathers stout. So they're going to have a whole party with that at their location in Boise or Garden City or wherever they are. But yeah, so I just wanted to take this open, kind of talk about stout. My first foray into stout was a long time ago. It was probably even before I really got into IPA. Of course, Guinness was one that we had a lot. In college, we also had Murphy's Irish Stout, which is another really good kind of dry Irish stout that comes in a can. It's just like a really nice, like kind of easy drinking stout. So yeah, we had those. And then I remember we would go to like Gordon Beers, or we'd go to one of the breweries that we had there in Orange, and they would always have like some kind of stout on. And it was always kind of fun, like to be able to order like a 10% beer or whatever, 9% beer. And then I got to know some people down at Stone Brewing and went out with them, and they introduced me to this amazing thing called AleSmith Speedway Stout, which I think you've heard of now. We have it in Boise. I'm pretty sure we have it in the whole rest of the state too. I think Scout distributes that everywhere. So yeah, we have these. I had this AleSmith Speedway Stout, and I was just like blown away by the flavor in it. It wasn't even barrel aged. It was just like a big Russian Imperial Stout. And then of course I had Stone Russian Imperial Stout, another amazing beer. And what I really loved about these beers was that they were not only sweet and decadent, and they had coffee notes and chocolate notes and everything else, but they were also bitter. They had like a nice bitter backbone to them. They stood up to food. You could really like drink these things on their own or with food because they were so like layered with flavor and layered with bitterness. And that's just kind of what's fun about stout too. Like other beers with IPAs, yeah, now they're doing a better job of sort of introducing hops earlier into the brewing process, which brings out more of those juicy flavors. So we're seeing that a lot now with hazies and even with some like West Coast style IPAs. With stout, the way you build a stout is you work from the malt back to the hops, as opposed to IPA where you work from the hops forward. This one works back from the malt to the hops like beer used to be made, really. I mean, so with a really good imperial stout, it's going to have black malt in it. It's going to have some type of chocolate malt in it. It's going to have some type of other maybe roasted caramel malt, something like that. And then there's going to be a base malt in there too. And the thing with stout, though, is especially imperial stout, you have to put in so much malt that you have to bitter it. You have to put hops in. Otherwise, the thing would be like these pastry stouts. It would just be like a sugar bomb. So then the big thing becomes, what hops do you use to not offset the chocolate and coffee and caramel flavors that you're building throughout the malt bill? That's the tough part. And some of them, I mean, there's some stouts out there, some imperial stouts out there that are pretty aggressively hopped that are not my favorite. And there are some out there that are under-hopped that also aren't my favorite. So it's a really tough, delicate balance. I mean, you can't just go out there and make a big imperial stout and expect it to be perfect on your first try. I mean, any homebrewers out there know how that goes. I know I've homebrewed a couple stouts and not all of them come out perfect. I'll tell you that much, but they always come out drinkable. I mean, at the very least, you have a big 9%, 10% stout that you can, put down, or you can lay it down, or you can, whatever, mix it with ice cream. Who cares? Just drink the thing. Anyway, yeah, that's so. Other than that, I mean, I really love these barrel-aged imperial stouts. I love the ones that come out once a year, the Fremonts, the Gosh, who else? Oh, Black Cliffs comes out. They come out. Boise comes out. Boise Brewing comes out with a barrel aged Black Cliffs every year. Abyss used to be a really big one from Deschutes. I think I still see that around here a little bit. Big Bad Baptist, of course, which we're going to talk about. And it's just nice. Like, it's just a nice, like, once a year kind of treat that you see in stores or at your favorite bottle shop or wherever it might be. And like, I just really love how much care and thought is put into them. And we're going to talk about that with Clay coming up. So you guys will kind of get, when I worked at Epic, I was part of the tasting crew. So I was part of this sort of building the flavor profile for our big Bad Baptist release every year. And what you learn when you come out of something like that is just how difficult it is to mix these barrel-aged stouts. Because it's not just like some breweries do. Some breweries take one barrel and just mix it and call it a day. But at Epic, we had 300-something barrels. And so we had to taste all of them. We had to find out which ones went with what. Clay and I talk about it later on. You'll hear all about the process. It's crazy. And the thing that I get when I open a barrel-aged stout, and I almost always lay them down for at least a year, and that means I put them in the cellar. They're in a dark place. It's temperature controlled. So it's not like, they're out in the garage or whatever. I put them in a closet, typically in the middle of the house. You should too. And the thing I get when I open up one, like a Parabola or like a Dark Star or whatever, is just that right away you get that like oak and you get that coffee and you get that chocolate. It just comes right out on the nose, and it's just a nice warming feeling when you get that. And then when you taste it and the thing still has some bitterness to it, that's when you know it's a good stout. Like you take a little taste, it still has some of that back end bitterness. That's when you're like, oh yeah, we're playing with the big boys now. And that's what I got the first time I had that Dark Star. I was like, oh yep, this is good. Fremont's a good brewer. And you can always tell a good brewery by that Imperial Stout. If they put one out once a year and if it's awesome, then it's probably a pretty decent brewery. Anyway, so I said I was going to rank these things. And I don't know where to begin. I guess we'll start last because that's the easiest. Pastry stout. I can't stand these stouts. I know you guys, you kids out there love them, but oh my God, it's just like too much booze and too much sweetness. And then the booze doesn't even really come through half the time. It just tastes like you're eating cake. Nah, it's not for me. I'm a fat kid, but I don't like that dessert stout. Then next, I would probably say, man, this is a tough one. It's already getting tough, and we're only on the second to last. So pastry is definitely last. And then I would probably go, I hate to say it, but probably milk stout. I love that left-hand beer, but yeah, most milk stouts are a little overdone, a little too sweet. So I'm going to go milk stout. Then after that, I'm going to go oatmeal, only because there's only like two good ones out there. And I really do love 825, so that's a tough one. Then after that, I would say coffee stout, just because there's a ton of them. They're all pretty good. Some of them are really good, but most of them are just kind of okay. Then I'd go American stout, probably next. I love that Black Cliffs, but we're talking like top three now. I got to put Guinness in the top three, so Dry Irish will be my next one. And then Imperial, and then barrel-aged Imperial, obviously my favorite kind of stout. And if you want to weigh in and tell me what your favorite kind of stout is, or maybe just a story about when you had a really fun stout. Also, just if you had like a camping experience, something like that, go ahead, write in the show, idahoboozepod@gmail.com, and check that out and put that on the social medias. Coming up, my interview with Clay Turnbow, the head brewer and brewmaster over there at Epic Brewing Company, my old place. That's where I used to work. He's going to come on the show, and we're going to talk all about stout, all about Big Bad Baptist, and why there is money in the banana stand. Coming up next on the Idaho Booze Podcast. This show brought to you by Treasure Valley Chevron. Treasure Valley Chevron locations at Highway 55 in Beacon Light and I-84 at Gowan Road have everything you need for, well, everything. Need beer and wine for an epic weekend up in McCall? TVC has hundreds of local beers, wines, and ready-to-drink cocktails to choose from at or below the cost of a grocery store. Looking for a snack? You couldn't ask for a wider selection of chips, candy, and jerky than at Treasure Valley Chevron. Email your next TVC purchase to me at idahoboozepod@gmail.com, and you could win a ginormous box of jerky from Treasure Valley Chevron. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm Steve Koontz, and joining me all the way from Salt Lake City, Utah, is Epic Brewing head brewer and brewmaster Clay Turnbow. Clay, what's going on?
Not much. Excited to be here. Excited to talk about some beers. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Hey, it's no problem. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you coming all the way from Utah, all the way from the Beehive State. It shows that you're a pro, and it really
Oh,
shows
thanks.
coming all this way to be on our little podcast. So, the last couple of years, I don't know if you know this, I've written a column for Slug Mag, and it's
Yeah.
a column all about Big Bad. Okay, so you're familiar with it. Well, other people probably aren't. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We're just talking you and me, so it's not really that big of a deal. So anyway, I'm basically used to getting all of the big bads in the mail and then drinking all of them and then writing a Hunter S. Thompson like treatise on them all. And so this year, Slug didn't want me. They said no, thank you. And I said fine. And
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Maybe, I don't know if they want me or not. I doubt it. But so I'm basically doing it on the pod. So I haven't had a chance to drink them yet. I was saving it for you. Your marketing genius over there, Gus, was nice enough to send them over. So I'm gonna first question is gonna be just how did you come up with these wild and crazy? I mean, the flavors this year are crazier than usual. You got an old fashioned cherry bliss. Those two flavors I kind of get, but the rest of them, like there's always money in the banana stand and cinnamon roll. Like where did the sort of the like inspiration for these flavors come from?
Yeah, there's some out there flavors this year for sure. The inspiration, it's kind of tough for me to answer that question. I came back, so I originally was at Epic, and I have come back in January of 2024, and we had already set
Oh wow.
four of the flavors by the time I got there. And we did have, the old fashioned was the one that I came up with for this year, but Jordan Schupbach previously, he and
Shoot.
Schupbach and the rest of the crew had come up with the rest of the flavors
Okay.
already.
So you didn't have you had a little bit of say on the old fashioned one, but the rest of them were already decided at that point.
Yeah, and to be honest, we had another flavor that I just didn't feel comfortable in executing to the standard that I thought Baptist should be, and so I nixed that one, suggested the old fashioned one, and made a little mock up of what I thought that beer could be, and everybody was stoked on it, and we kind of shifted gears a little late and threw that one into the mix.
Was it the jalapeno popper flavor that Jordan's been talking about so much?
I wish. I think that would have been easier, to be honest.
All right, well, I'm going to do something here that I don't like. I've always kind of focused this podcast on kind of interviewing cool people and talking off the top of my head about shit that I shouldn't talk about. So in this particular time, though, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually grab a beer out of the cooler here and I'm gonna pop it open and we'll talk about it as I'm drinking it. And again, I hate it when podcasts do this. So I apologize to you. I apologize to anyone else kind of watching and being like, man, that does look good. I wish I had a beer right now, but I'm jogging. So
Right.
let me grab one right now. Just pick one up.
Yeah, thanks for making an exception for me. I'm excited to have a beer on the
Absolutely.
podcast.
No, it's no problem at all. It's my pleasure. And it's one of those things that I just and I love the guys who do them. There's a couple of the podcasts that's what they do, and I think it's great for them. Like they look like they're having a lot of fun doing it. I'm
Yeah,
just like I have a terrible poker face. If I make a weird face or something, I don't want whatever brewer I'm talking to. But you and I, we're good friends, so it's not a big deal, right?
yeah, yeah.
So the first one I'm going to pop open is the old fashioned. You can see that
Okay.
there, and this one is the one I thought would be the one that I would know the flavors the most. So this is going to have like cherry. It's going to be whiskey. What? Go ahead and talk about kind of what went into this one while I crack this open and sort of kind of take a sip and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So old fashioned. The idea was,
Oh, samesies.
yeah, same time.
What did you pop open there?
Same thing. I'm all set
Oh,
up. I
you
want
are.
to
You
drink
are
the
set
same
up.
ones.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. Man, that Gus, he is a marketing genius, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
cheers.
hey, cheers.
Good to see you.
So the old fashioned, I always thought that Big Bad Baptist, in the Venn diagram world, I always thought whiskey drinkers and Big Bad Baptist, had a lot of overlap in their Venn diagram. And
Mm-hmm.
so going for like trying to hit the flavors of like a whiskey inspired cocktail, I thought was something that we could execute well and Big Bad Baptist fans would like. And so, at least for me, when I think old fashioned, it's usually like bold whiskey, a hint of cherry, and then it's that orange for me. That orange along, like rim in my glass with that orange and then dropping it in like. And so marrying that with a beer, like obviously an old fashioned doesn't have, big imperial stout flavors to it. So there
Not
is going to be
usually,
that. But I thought those flavors would go very well with a barrel aged imperial stout. And I think they really do.
Did you use any like barrel aged bitters for this at all or anything like that? Oh, do you have the tumbler? Oh, damn it. I should have grabbed the
I
tumbler.
did.
I have that tumbler. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I have a moose cup. I don't think that's going to work. Man, you guys are way smarter than me today. So did you use any kind of bitters or barrel aged bitters or anything like that for this one?
I didn't use any barrel aged bitters. I found a nice orange that, I guess like it's an alcohol based extract, which like that's kind of what, bitters, it's not the same thing, but the flavors are very, very similar. And I felt like using that, was something that mimicked bitters very well.
You may not know this, but we are experts on bitters here on the Idaho Booze Podcast. We've had 2 different bitter makers on, so if next year you need something, let us know. We'll find it. We'll find a hookup for you.
Definitely, because I think we will end up doing another like whiskey cocktail inspired one for next year. So
yeah, just so long as it isn't like a whiskey sour. I don't know how that would go over. But
yeah.
You know what? It's the ball's in your court, Clay. You do what you want. So this one, I do get that orange. It's pretty good on there, and I'm with you on that too with an old fashioned. I love that when they I don't like it when they just drop the orange in there. I oftentimes what I'll do is I'll take the orange out if they do that, and then I'll express it all around the glass, so I get that like on my hands almost, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this one, the orange comes through really well. I think also you handled the cherry pretty nicely in here. It's not, just like in an old fashioned, you really don't get a lot of cherry. You get a cherry, but you don't get a lot of cherry.
Yeah, and that one was fruit puree from Oregon.
Oh wow!
A lot of brewers use Oregon fruit products. It's kind of like I feel like they're kind of the standard for fruit in the brewing industry, and their sweet cherries was just perfect for this beer.
Did you mix them with like any bourbon or anything to bring out some of that flavor, or did you just kind of throw that cherry stuff in there?
Just kind of blended it in the beer. And so It didn't go through fermentation to try and leave a little bit of that cherry sweetness in there. I didn't want the cherries to ferment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was on the bright side, not on the fermenter side.
Exactly.
Nice. We can use jargon on this show. We're a jargon friendly show here.
Right.
So this one, I really love the whiskey barrel in this one too. I think that it really pops. Do you remember what kind of whiskey barrels you used for this year's Baptist, or are you guys still pretty close to the vest on that one?
Oh no, open book. It was a lot of different barrels though. It was, this year's Big Bad Baptist was somewhere in the neighborhood of 300, a little over 300 whiskey barrels.
Ooh.
And a good portion of those were MGPI. And a good portion were like, oh man, now of course you put me on the spot and now the names are falling off. Anyway, I would say about half were MGPI, and of the MGPI, I would say half of those were rye and half of those were wheat. And
you know what? I was going to say, like, I'm getting a rye character from this.
Yeah,
that I don't hate.
I think 40 or so percent of the 300 whiskey barrels were rye.
That's cool.
And most of the bigger percentage after that was wheated bourbon. Like, it's kind of an interesting thing. It wasn't,
what's a wheated bourbon? I don't know that I've ever heard of a wheated bourbon.
There's like, which one is it? It's the Weller, I believe, is a pretty high wheat bourbon.
Oh.
And what is it? Larceny is also a high wheat bourbon. I don't know the percentage.
Larceny I can afford. Weller is a little.
I can't even find it here.
Oh well, yeah, you're in Utah. It's probably in some old senator's cabinet somewhere. He probably gets all of them. Yeah, that's one of the great things about having them control everything up there. We have liquor stores here, but they're more like friendly places to go where people are nice. It's not like going to the DMV.
Right. And they're not state owned, right?
No, they are state owned. Yeah.
Oh, they are state owned.
Oh, yeah. Our liquor is controlled here, but not beer and wine. We can get beer and wine wherever, wherever we want. So, but it's a, nice. It's a Clay. This is actually the day after Thanksgiving that this is going to be on. But it's still worth saying to everybody out there: make sure you get out and get your liquor and your beer and wine for the weekend right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Got to make sure people know that.
Everybody in Utah, or even Idaho. I'm sure your stores get crazy too right around the holidays.
Oh yeah, no, in Idaho our stores are crazy all the time. It's we love our liquor out here, but no, yeah, they do. The holiday times, everything gets nuts. So yeah, this is great. Love the old fashioned. This is a awesome new entry. I think last year I really love the
The
coquito. What was
Coquito, I think that one was my favorite from last year
the
too.
rum? Was that the rum?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. All right, you ready to move on to the next one, or do you have anything else to say about this one? What else do you have? Do you have anything else about this one?
Though, for me, like, I don't know if you get this, but for me, like, the orange tends to be pretty pungent up front, but on like sip 3 or 4, it kind of subsides a little bit, and then I find it easier to get the cherry.
Yeah.
But so far, I mean, it's been kind of early for the sales for this and how people are reacting. But along the brewery, it seems to be at least about half the people, this is their favorite of the flavored Big Bad Baptists.
I mean, that especially there at Epic, where you guys have a pretty good, well-staffed kind of cellar and well-staffed people on the line and everything like that. I always that's the first thing I ever did when we had a new beer at Epic or at or anywhere that I worked was I'd go and I'd make sure the people there liked it. Because if people there don't like it, then what are we talking about? Like that's I always figured at Epic at least we brewed the beer for us first, and then everybody else kind of got to try it as well, right?
Yeah, that's still the ethos.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I love about that place. No matter who's working there, everyone seems to kind of follow the same sort of traditions and guidelines as far as that kind of base, just that base sort of just how good everything is. I can't think of the right word. This old fashioned is hitting me like a fucking hammer right now. So
Yeah.
but it's always gonna be like that quality, right?
Yeah.
You can brag on it. It's okay. And just to kind of talk about your thing a little bit too before we move on to the next one. And you left Epic, right? You were at Epic for me. We're going to get into the whole timeline later, but you were at Epic, then you left Epic, and you took that same ethos to Taquitos, right? You guys had that same sort of vision and same sort of quality and everything else like that, right?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
I think you did. I for sure think you did.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one here. This is called Straight Out of Vermont. It just says salted maple on it. Is that right?
Salted maple.
Is it called Straight Out of Vermont, or does it just say that?
I think that might have been I think that might have been a sentence from the sales sheet that Gus.
That's an inside joke. Inside joke there, Straight Out of Vermont, right?
Yeah, and same with the banana stand thing.
Well, we're going to get to the banana stand. Don't you worry about that. All right, so this one is Big Bad Baptist Salted Maple. Just show everybody out. There he is. And shout out to the original Big Bad Baptist, Dave Cole. Good dude. I hope he's listening. Haven't seen him in a while. Miss him. Wish he would text me back.
I'll send him the link and let him know he was mentioned.
That's the part. I would do it opposite. I would say he was mentioned, then send the link. That just I know Dave. Okay. So he's surfing right now is what he's doing. So this one is the Whiskey Barrel. Again, Whiskey Barrel. I just went with sea salt and maple syrup. And why don't you describe what you get on the nose? Because you have what I like to call a glass. I'm an idiot. So go ahead and tell us what you get on the nose there, Clay.
For me, it's that like classic roasted malt is the first thing I get. And then it's immediately barrel character.
Yeah.
For me.
I get actually the barrel quite a bit in there. But yeah, you're right. The roasted malt. Man, and I've talked about it in stuff that I've written more than I've talked about on the pod. But when you're on the tasting panel for the whiskey barrels, it's one of those things where you I mean, do you guys still do it like right at like 8 a.m, like just pop them open and get going?
I like to do them first thing in the morning. I feel like people's palates are better first thing in the morning, but it is such a struggle. I mean, like take this year, for example, it's 310 whiskey barrels that all need to be censored by multiple people. And then if I'm thinking that I want everybody's palates at their absolute best, which I do for this brand, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And these barrels tend to range from, 11 to 14% ABV. And so like
Stay
trying to
tuned.
accomplish 300 plus tasting and keep a productive day for the rest of the day, like we do it over the course of like 12 weeks, but
Not just that, but there's slips of paper, right? That people are writing the tasting notes on. You have to somehow keep track of all that. I mean,
yep.
it's a lot. Like, it's a lot going on with that, and I don't envy the person that has to that has to keep track of all that stuff.
I know.
Uh, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I have so many like friends of mine, my brother, my family, they're, I'm telling them how, they ask how work is. And I'm like, oh man, I'm dealing with all these sampling, all these barrel aged stouts. And they're, like, oh my God, that sounds so amazing. I'm like, yeah,
Nobody ever
like think
believes
of the
you.
logistics of trying to do this and keep your employees sober and safe. Like,
I was
man,
like,
it was
and
a lot.
I was in sales, so I would get there, and I was on Kevin put me on the tasting panel pretty early because I guess I can taste, and he gives me these. He's like, "All right, good, you're here, and we need you over in the cellar." I was like, "All right," so I go over there, and they have like, I don't know, 10 pitchers or something lined up. And I'm like, "What is happening?" And they're like, "Oh, you're on the tasting panel." It's like, oh, this is the best day of my life. This is like Christmas come early. About the third or fourth one, I was like, "All right, you guys. Seriously, we need to
Right?
maybe do 4 or 5 at a time. I don't know if I'm going to get through 12 today." And then I
Yeah.
had to get in the cube and go out and sell beer.
Yeah.
It was wild. But this one, the reason why I bring that up is because on this one, I get that barrel character that you're talking about right away. I get the a little bit of soy, some of that like tobacco, some of that leather. I get the burnt marshmallow that comes out really big in this one. And
Yeah.
then I think the reason for that is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or right here. I prefer to be right. Is if the sea salt brings out those flavors.
I totally agree. I think the sea salt can like accentuate those flavors that you're talking about, and I also think the sea salt paired with the maple syrup, like because again, the maple syrup was in transfer on the way to the bright tank, so it did not go through
Okay,
fermentation.
did not get
So it is
fermented. The
adding
maple
some
syrup didn't
sweetness.
get fermented.
No, so it's
Crazy.
adding some sweetness too. So I think that sweetness paired with that salt like really makes the barrel character pop.
Pop. It
But
sure
it
does.
also feels like
Man.
that soy sauce like that and like I'm using soy sauce as like a descriptor that's pretty
Mhm.
common for people that
Yep.
are doing sensory on this kind of stuff. It's not like seriously tastes like soy sauce, but that character I don't love on its own, but with the salt, with the maple, and how it's bringing out that flavor, it really does
Yeah.
play well with this beer. It's kind of
I
funny
mean,
to talk about
to
soy sauce being positive in a beer.
well, when you taste a barrel and it's a soy bomb, that barrel is going to be like one that you're going to definitely use, but it's not going to go in that whole barrel is not going in one beer, right? Like that's going
Oh
to get
no, no,
spread
no.
out.
Yeah, it was a conversation we had while we were doing the tastings was when we find one of those barrels that has, some soy sauce, which is, it's coming from oxidation, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
barrel that necessarily wasn't treated right. And like, I never want that to be more than like 1 or 2% of the blends. And if we start seeing more than 1 or 2%, those get, nixed from being in the blend.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because you have a lot of so it's not really the soy like it's not like kikkoman. What we're talking about here is more like an umami. It's like a big
Yeah,
umami
exactly.
blast,
That's exactly what it
and
is.
it's not like a super sharp like sushi soy sauce. I almost think like it's just so hard to say, and most brewers don't even know what it is. But Worcestershire is more what I
Yeah,
would look at.
I
But
agree.
soy is the way to. But the way that we say it, or the way you guys say it. I mean, I don't work at a brewery, but the way you guys say it is, it's soy, and when you get that umami blast. In this beer, it's awesome. It's really, really good. The sweet, like you say, the maple and the sea salt really play together and make for a really nice beer. Like this is really fucking good. Like this, I thought the old fashioned was going to be my favorite hands down, and this one I like better than the old fashioned. Like this is really, really good. So great job on this one, Clay. Is there anything else like with that? Like when you guys are doing that and putting together barrels and deciding which ones go with which, like what other kind of flavors, what other kind of characters do you see in barrels that you kind of spread out over the course of the 5 or 6 different flavors?
Yeah, good question. So, like soy umami, obviously one of them. You also mentioned vanilla. I feel like that's something I'm always looking for when, the tasters are giving me their notes. That vanilla flavor is something I'm looking for to try and earmark for maybe our, like every year we do like we're not going to taste it today, but we do one that's essentially like the brewer's favorite barrels. So like last year it was called Brewmaster's Keep. This year it's called Black Gold. So
you know what? We'll do it. We'll do it at the end of the show because I can't not. Like I love that one. That's my favorite one. So go ahead. Sorry.
It's my favorite of the year.
It's always the best. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So those like vanilla ones that have like a little bit of sweetness to them, I like to earmark it for at least a good portion of those for that one that's not getting any flavors.
Nice.
I tend to find a lot of like black licorice, star anise, and maybe like 20% of the barrels. And then a lot of, sometimes it's just like a roast bomb.
Like, oh, wow. It's like, just like chalk, like coffee chalk, like dregs.
Like, yeah, it's really like so I don't know what is actually happening, but it just tastes like the roasted malts paired with like the char of the inside of that barrel just like came together in a way that it's just nothing. It's just burnt char.
It's got to be like the
alcohol and sweetness.
It's got to be like the mix of like the end of the, I don't know. Do you pump them from the fermenter or from the bright tank into barrels? I forget how that goes.
We used to go from the bright tanks into barrels. That was when we would filter everything.
Yeah.
I've kind of moved us away from filtering everything and just essentially like biofining and lagering a lot of our beers. Like we have enough tank space right now that I can, give, instead of filtering a beer, I can give it an extra week and a half in the tank.
Oh, cool.
To clarify. And so
that's nice. That's why you're using biofine instead of.
Yeah. So now like this year we filled the barrels off the fermenter, but it was a fermenter that, had been chilled and lagered for close to a month by the time.
Oh, that's interesting. So so biofine, for people who don't know, it's like a what's it called? Like a clarifying agent, something
clarifying
like that.
Agent. Yeah.
And it is a 100% vegan product. So it's not iso. What's that other one called? ISO something? ISO.
I don't know. Like I know that
there's one that's like Jello. It's like ISO.
Oh, gelatin.
ISO.
The gelatin's not good.
Yeah, and then the other one, the one the homebrewers would be familiar with, would be Irish moss. So Irish moss used to be used a lot, but Irish moss it sucks up a lot of beer, whereas the biofine does a really nice job of clarifying it without sucking up any beer, right?
Yep, biofine's an amazing product, and it's cold side, so it goes.
Cold side.
Yeah, so it goes like when you're crashing the beer, and it just pulls everything down to the bottom of the tank, and in a matter of days, it looks filtered. And
so I would say like that roast bomb that you're talking about would be like it's like a perfect storm of like a 5 scorched barrel, like a barrel that's just like on fire on the inside, like from I don't even know, it was from some peated scotch or something, and then the bottom of that bright tank or wherever you're taking the beer from, it's got to be right, it's something like that, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah,
that's crazy. I've never ran into that where it's just was like, so you're just saying it just tastes like burnt coffee. That's crazy.
Yeah, and like I know this, but anybody that hasn't done like extensive sensory on barrel aged imperial stout, like when we're talking about all these flavor differences between barrels, the barrels are still like all those barrels still taste 95% the same.
Yeah, we're splitting hairs
here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that 5% difference. We're really trying to, find the nuance of that barrel and then define it with 4 or 5 key phrases that we can try and peg to which variant we think would be best for that.
That's awesome. All right. Finally, we have a new start here, and there's always money in the banana stand. A new start. And how much would you say a banana costs, Clay? $10?
$10, right?
All kidding aside, will this beer cause one to cluck like an imaginary chicken or perform amazing street magic? What are we looking for in this beer?
After 2 of them, it will.
Well, let's see what we got. Let's
I'll be honest, this was the one I was the most skeptical of trying to execute.
You and me both.
Honestly, one of the ones I'm most proud of for the year.
It's the one that I was most excited to write jokes about and the one I was least excited to try. So here we go.
Fair. I think that was the general consensus of the entire
right away,
movie.
You get banana bread right on banana. Ka. That is banana bread I mean, it's banana chocolate bread basically with a whiskey. That kind of makes me want to bake. Actually, it
Right?
makes me want to. Yeah. So tell us about this one. Tell us what's in it and how this all came, how this one kind of, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Why is this?
Why is there banana in beer on purpose? Is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, that is what again. That's you know,
Yeah, banana has always been an off flavor, or like unless you're drinking like German Hefeweizen that should probably
yeah.
have a little banana flavor in it from the
It's
yeast.
almost like doing like a green apple lager or something like
Right, right.
that.
So this is one I inherited this and was like, I am skeptical, but I am going to try and execute this to taste
You can
delicious.
swear.
Okay, cool. um, this is the one. I mean, essentially, when it comes to making Big Bad Baptist, we're essentially making, 300 whiskey barrels full of stuff for me to blend with. And so this particular blend, the chocolate banana, there's always money in the banana stand.
There's always money in the banana stand.
This one I spent the absolute most time on.
I bet you did.
I tried so many different variations of like putting banana puree in the bright tank to fermenting bananas I tried everything, and it was always like mind-numbingly close to being really good, but not quite there. And then I finally put it together kind of the last minute. This was one that we almost had to shift gears and go with something else, but I finally found the right combination to like make it like a banana. And like you said, like the idea was like, let's make it taste like banana bread, banana cream pie, something like, I don't want it to taste like banana runts.
You got to pick one.
Like that banana runts flavor, or like
like
candied banana, you know what I'm talking about?
It's
like
terrible.
Like I
it's
did
terrible.
not want that at all.
No,
And
nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I'll speak for everybody. Nobody eats those things.
No, they're the worst flavor of the candies, and I would never want that in my beer.
No, nobody would. So you did a bunch of different trial and errors here, and you came up with. Was it a conscious decision to make it like a chocolate banana bread? Because that's exactly what it tastes like to me.
Honestly, the first goal of mine was make banana taste good in barrel-aged imperial stout.
Sure.
And that took a while.
How many of us have had that same thought?
That was the bane of my existence for weeks.
All of us are just like going to bed at night. How do I do it?
Yeah, turns out fermented bananas in imperial stout are not very good.
No. So you ended up. Where did you end up? What was the final solution?
We ended up with using a portion of banana, like just straight up bananas, not fermented. So like I found a company that would sell us just banana puree in a bag, which was great. And like I thought that was the weirdest thing to try and source, but found it. So that, and then I found like this. It was essentially trying to make a banana cream pie. Like that was kind of the inspiration for this, was banana cream pie.
Okay.
Like
I'm getting that more and more. Like I'm getting that like roasty meringue kind of flavor more and more.
It definitely turned out to be more banana bready. Like everybody's notes have been banana bready, but for me, like my recipe idea was like, all right. But that like banana cream pie was like the one thing I was like, that would pair that pairs well with coffee. It's an easy transition to pair that with imperial stout. And so that was kind of my like North Star direction with this. And then once we hit this flavor, I was like, oh, okay, this chocolate covered banana bread, that could work. Originally, the original idea of this was chocolate covered banana with sea salt and peanuts.
Okay. But that sounds weird.
I couldn't get the salt and peanut flavor. I could not get it to marry well with the banana flavor. And I ended up just nixing that part of it. And
I think next time you do this one, you should just call it a Job guy.
I hope the listeners have watched Modern Family
or Arrested Development. Either one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry,
it seems that I shot my wad on Arrested Development jokes here, if you will. So we're gonna take a short break. We're gonna be back in just a little bit, and we're gonna talk more about these. We're gonna do one more. We're gonna pull out that. We'll do the black gold. We'll talk about that, and then we're also gonna talk about. I'll just real quick. We still have a couple minutes left. I think. Yeah, we have 3 minutes here. So there are a lot of flavors here. You guys did what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 flavors, I guess, including the original. Yep. Right. So. Yep. I want to go back to one that I really love and that I know a lot of people like, and that's Big Bad Baptista. Is there any chance, because my collection is dwindling, I think I only have maybe 5 bottles left. So is there any chance that Big Bad Baptista could come back, or maybe the rum barrel one, anything like that?
Big Bad Baptista is definitely on my radar, and it was honestly probably what was going to replace the chocolate banana.
The banana stand.
If I couldn't have nailed the chocolate banana,
which you did. Here. This is really good. You did nail it.
Are you surprised to like a banana beer?
Yeah, totally. Hugely surprised. Bigly surprised.
Everybody was. However, I believe the 10-year anniversary of Baptista is in 26.
I believe that is true.
I think 16 was the first year. So I was willing to do it in an emergency situation to bring back Baptista this year, but I'm kind of holding off for the 10-year anniversary of the release and bring it back in 26.
Okay, so hear that, everybody? We're just going to have to wait. So, eat it. We're just going to have to suck down these amazing 3. I mean, these 3 are really, really good. The old fashioned I thought the old fashioned, like I said, was going to be my favorite. I think I'm between the salted caramel and the banana. Or salted maple. I think the salted maple is still my favorite, but man, I think what you pulled off with that banana is really impressive. Great job by you, Clay. Nice, really, nice work. That's freaking cheers to you, man. Nice work. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here. We have Clay Turnbow from Epic Brewing right here on the show. We're going to come back and talk about kind of where he's been, what he's done, and then we're going to just talk stout because it's Black Friday. We're talking stout. That's it's my show. I can do what I want. I want to talk about stout, so we're doing that. So we're going to do that right after this on the Idaho Booze Podcast. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm Steve Coots here with Clay Turnbow. Clay, hey.
Hey.
So we talked all about a few of the Baptists. We got through 3 of them. We're both, I would imagine, I'm a little lightheaded. I haven't worked in a brewery in a while, so I'm a little lightheaded. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I want to hear about all about where you came from and what you've been doing and kind of, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. I was home brewing. So obviously I get into this like most people. I was home brewing and then took a job at Epic Brewing, actually, instead of pursuing my journalism background.
Man, you and I are the same person.
I didn't know that, actually.
I worked in TV before I worked at Epic Brewing.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead. Wow.
So, yeah, I took a job at on the packaging line at Epic Brewing. I think it was 2012. I think it was May 2012.
Yeah.
And loved it. Loved every second of it. And honestly, it was Kevin Crompton that gave me that advice. I asked him, I took a tour at Epic Brewing, shook his hand and asked him, I was like, should I look into going to brewing school after, getting an English journalism degree? And he said, no, take a job, find a job at a brewery and see if you like doing the work. And I would thank that man, buy him a beer.
He's definitely
next time I saw him.
He's definitely listening.
So
when he figures out how to get a podcast on his flip phone.
So I did that. I took a job on the packaging line at Epic Brewing and then, worked there from 2012 to late 2015, learned everything. Packaging line, cellar team, brew house, learned everything at Epic Brewing.
Yep.
And then
you and me both.
Then I got a fun opportunity at a brewery called Two Row Brewing down here in Midvale, Utah with Brian Coleman. And
my guy.
Yeah, it was an awesome, worked there for a year and he and I had a great time making some awesome beers, one of my favorite stouts. And I think we'll probably get into that.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. So are you talking about the breakfast stout?
It was actually the Dark Alley.
Oh, Dark Alley. Yeah, Dark Alley. Yeah, Dark Alley's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, big stout. That's a big boy.
Yeah, we did a couple of those while I was there and released one barrel-aged version of it while I was there, the first barrel-aged version of it. So good. That beer
I think I have one of those in my cellar.
little
Pretty sure I
white
do.
bottle. It's like a
Beige
perfectly
label.
clean white. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love that beer.
Yeah,
So
Brian's a good dude.
worked with Brian for a year, and then I got a really fun opportunity to open a brewery, and that was Keto's Brewing. And
Shout
so
out to Keto's, friend of the show.
yeah,
Nice guys.
got to go work with Andrew and Chad, and we opened Keto's Brewing and saw it through its first 7 years or so, and really proud of everything that we ever made over there, and they're still killing it over there. David and Patrick and Andrew and Nate, everybody's killing it over there.
Yep, and they've just recently. This is how fucked up Utah is. They just recently got a license to sell their own beer at their own pub.
Yeah,
That
crazy.
just happened. Shout out to Andrew and everyone over there. Was Chad also an Epic guy? Or Andrew?
Yeah.
Chad? Yeah. Okay.
Chad and I got to know each other at Epic, and then he had left to help open Roja while I was at Two Row, and then he and I both left. He left Roja, I left Two Row to go get Keto's open.
And now I don't know if he's still there or not, but at least he was. Our friend Kevin Crompton was at Two Row when I was there. I don't know if he's still there.
At least last I knew, which I think that was like 4 or 5 months ago.
And we don't get Two Row here in Idaho yet, but Brian, if you're listening, we'd love to get it. I'd be down to do some the breakfast stout and dark alley and the hazy. What's it called? Hazy as it gets or something. I don't know.
Feeling hazy.
Feeling, there it is.
That was a me and Brian start. Like me and Brian made that beer originally.
Yeah, that's great. So now
they have a nice, pretty new. I think it's a 20 barrel system. Maybe it's 10, but they've got a nice, pretty new system in their new spot. So maybe
their new spot is it's a Savers that they took, and it's so great because it happens a lot now with strip malls and malls kind of just going out of business. So people that actually need space move into these spots. And so there was a Savers down there in Sandy or Garden City, or not Garden City, Sandy or whatever town it is. Midvale. I don't know what town it is down there. And it's a giant, picture the size like a Marshall's. And it's just, that's the size of it. And it's a brewery. And so it's huge.
It really feels like a brewery from it's not like Salt Lake is always the breweries have always felt so weird because our laws don't allow us to be open to families and stuff. But it feels
they don't feel weird. They are weird.
They are. Thank you. But it felt like a brewery from a grown-up city, like a brewery in Denver.
It really does.
It's totally reasonable.
It has stuff. It has fun stuff. Has TVs. It has
huge cornhole spot. It's got all this and the little tiny place where you can buy beer to go. It's so funny. It's so little. But yeah, Brian, shout out to Brian, great dude. I used to hang out with him quite a bit when I lived there, and I'd love to have him. We'll get him on the pod sometime. He's a fun guy to talk to, and Definitely. We'll see if we can't get Two Row Brewing down here in Idaho, because I do like their beers, and I like more than the beers. I like Kevin and Brian. But it was kind of fun about the Utah. Before we get to stouts, I want to talk about Utah just for 2 minutes, and so what's kind of funny about the Utah brew scene now is you came from Keto's, and then before that you were at Two Row. And I'm sorry, go ahead and finish your. Did you finish? Go ahead and finish your story. So then you talk about coming back to Epic. Sorry, so coming back to Epic.
We're gonna cut all this out.
Yeah, coming back to Epic. I mean, I've always kind of lived my life as don't burn it. It's never worth anybody's time. No matter how you leave a job, just don't burn bridges.
Yeah.
And, I got a call from Jordan Schutbach, who was a very long time head brewmaster at Epic, kind of right after Kevin Crompton. Epic's only had 3 head brewmasters in, 14 years, something like that.
And you're the 3rd.
Yeah. So, got a call from Jordan and interested in bringing me on into this role that was essentially going to be taking on, we were going to work together for a while, but he was kind of working on an exit strategy, and it was a really fun opportunity. And to come back home where I cut my teeth and to see after I talked to Dave and Peter and Jordan and some of the people that still work there from when I was, from when I left there in 2014.
Still work there from when I left there in 2011
Exactly, like,
or 12. Yeah.
any place that has employees that have been there 10 plus years, like that is a big deal to me. And
for sure.
So and then I kind of saw what the goal was for the next 10 years, and it really aligned with what I wanted to do, and jumped on an opportunity, and it's been a really fun 2024.
It's awesome. That's so great to hear. Yeah, it's such an awesome place. Like, I feel the same way. The only reason I left is because I literally left. Like,
yeah,
I left town. Like, and I would have, if we could have figured out. I think there was like a little bit of talk of trying to figure it out, but not a lot. I was just like, anyway. But that's awesome. Good. That's good that you're back at Epic. And obviously, you did some awesome stuff at Ketos. Like I said, I'm a big fan of Ketos, not just because I know the guys that work there and everything, but just because I feel like their double IPA is like one of my favorite beers that's out of Utah right now. I feel like it's right up there with, Elefino and, Hopulent. Hopulent's probably still my favorite double IPA there, but man,
David
that's
done
awesome.
such a good job over there with those IPAs.
Yeah, it's good. And they can finally serve them in their own place. That's great. So let's talk about stout. This is Black Friday. We're talking about stouts. There are many different types of stout out there. There's dry stout, sweet stout, oatmeal stout, imperial, Russian imperial. Now there's white stouts, which are kind of weird. You know those ones. So we've been talking about barrel stouts, but which non-barrel stout is your favorite, and which beer in particular do you look for when you want something kind of roasty and fun?
Yeah, great question. I kind of surprise some people when I say that, like, my favorite, and this has been consistent through like my entire brewing career, my favorite beer that I've ever been involved with is 825 Stout at Epic. I don't want to feel like I'm just like,
of it.
I know it sounds like I'm just being a company guy, but like,
you're 100%. You're 100% right. It's an awesome stout.
That oatmeal stout, it's like ranged in between from like 5.5% to 6.2%. It's never that high. Like, that
it's
beer
just
is
sweet
just
enough.
phenomenal.
Yeah, go ahead and talk about it a little bit. Go ahead, brag on it.
Yeah, that, like, oatmeal stouts, in my opinion, have just like the perfect balance of roasted malt, like body from the oatmeal, and like a complex grist,
and
then just balanced enough with the hops. Like, it can be such a perfectly brewed style and 825 has always been a shining example of oatmeal stout. I mean, granted though, like, we don't get a lot of oatmeal stout in Utah. It's not a popular style, but it's one of my favorite styles, and 825 is a great example of it that's always been accessible to me.
So here in Idaho, we have one. It's called Black Cliff Stout. Have you ever had that?
I haven't. No. Who makes it?
Boise Brewing.
Boise.
So Boise Brewing makes this stout. It's called 825 I'm sorry. Yours is called 825. Theirs is called Black Cliffs. And we had their head brewer Lance on, and we talked about it at length because it's the beer they've won the most. They've won, I think, 3 GABF medals with. And I think all 3. I think it's a bronze, silver, gold beer. I think it is, or maybe it's silver, gold. I can't remember how it goes. But that beer it's a dry stout, and it's sort of like roasty, like very like black malty, like, just really nice, like kind of roasty, dry stout. It's right around like 7% alcohol. Now the oatmeal stout you're talking about, 825, is more like a 5.5%, easy drinking. And just like, what are the kind of flavor characteristics that sort of separate that oatmeal stout from like this Black Cliffs, which is the dry kind of roasty stout?
Yeah, well, I feel like an oatmeal stout around 5.5 is going to be a little bit softer. But I feel like that dry stout's going to have the same kind of flavors. They're just accentuated a little bit, like a little bit more booze. The roast is going to be a little bit more in your face. You're going to feel the alcohol a little bit more. Like, to me, they're similar in their flavor profiles. It's just the intensities.
Yeah.
And then like oatmeal stouts tend to have more body, but
yeah. And I'm even having trouble thinking of another like oatmeal stout that I know there's one. Bell's had one for a while that was really good. And then I'm trying to think. No, that was a porter. So yeah, oatmeal stout. I love it because for me, it's just, once you get past sort of like, if you're sort of delving into it a little bit more, once you get past sort of the roastiness of it, it really does like come off as like an oatmeal cookie, like really just kind of not like super sweet, but sort of sweet with a little bit of chocolatey undertones. It is a really nice beer. That is a nice beer. Good call on that one. So
Waters used to make a good one.
Oh, did they really?
They might still do it at the pub, but it was called Captain Bastards.
Captain Bastards. You know, I totally forgot about that beer. That was a good beer. And it wasn't. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. You know, Jason, if you're out there listening, or Jenny, or any of the old school people that I know from Squatters, I don't know any of the monster folk. They seem nice.
Yeah.
Little on edge for me.
Yeah, I mean, Jason's still there.
Is Jason Stock still there?
He's still there.
That guy. If you don't know who that is, he's the guy on the cover of Hop Rising. That's him. That's Jason. Great dude. So barrel aged stouts, like we've been talking about, they're often like kind of the crown jewel of a brewery. Like it's like a one-time release, like the Abyss or like Big Bad Baptist from you guys, or like Fremont has Dark Star, the barrel aged Dark Star. It's really good. So these are usually, they take a lot of time. There's a lot of care put into them. And I know we talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but maybe you can just give us a broad outline. What is done during that time that makes these stouts so delicious and also like a little bit more pricey than most other beers?
Yeah, it's a complex beer. There's a lot that goes into them. Like for me, like it starts with recipe development, and like this is something that's kind of changed, I feel like, in the brewing industry in the last 5 to 10 years, is like instead of just taking the imperial stout that we usually make in the fall or whatever and throwing that in whiskey barrels and seeing how it turns out in 6 months, which I feel like was how craft brewers approached barrel aging in the mid 20 teens. Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's now transitioned to like brewers, and we did the same thing this year with Big Bad Baptist, is like we are now making the beers knowing they're going into barrels and designing the recipes to age well in whiskey barrels. And I feel like that's really kind of taken imperial stouts and like barrel aged products in general to like another level since like in the lifetime of Big Bad Baptist.
I mean, Big Bad Baptist started out as our imperial stout, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm pretty sure now you brew Big Bad Baptist. You don't just brew that same imperial stout, do you?
No. We kind of tweak it knowing that this beer is going to, spend anywhere from 3 to sometimes a year and a half in whiskey barrels and needs to hold up to oxygen ingress. But like we do everything to prevent it. But any brewer knows that like any beer that goes into a barrel, it's going to see some oxygen.
I mean, that's part of the beauty of putting something in a barrel, right? You want it to kind of be wild and be different and be out there, right?
Yeah, and that's, exactly why we talked about sensory. That's why we taste every single barrel, because they will vary. Like every barrel has its own little thing to it. And, I would say that like I feel really good about our practices when we see a 5 to 10% loss rate in barrels, like being like 1 in 10 gets just like, no, that's not good enough to be in the blend. But if we're below that, I feel like we're doing a really good job. But yeah.
Awesome. So one thing that with stouts, I keep a lot of them in the cellar. I have a big cellar, not as big as it used to be, granted. But what are some stouts for you that you might that are in your cellar that you will pull out for a special occasion, or like what kind of which in particular, which beers, maybe besides any Epic beer, what are you looking at?
Yeah, like I got into craft beer, back in like really big, like looking for barrel aged imperial stouts in like 2010, 2011. And so like Goose Island was a huge deal back then, like kind of less of a deal. Yeah. Bourbon County, like
they're still good.
It's still good. Like it's much less of a big deal. Like that was always kind of something I looked out for back then. I mean, now I want to find that brewery that I've never heard of. Like, because in my mind, like as a brewer, like when I put out and you even brought it up with the barrel aged imperial stouts earlier, I kind of feel like this is kind of the brewer's like best release of the year, or like the brewer should put the most work into this release.
Yeah, it's their signature, right?
Exactly. And so like when I see a brewery put out a barrel aged imperial stout that I've never heard of, for me it's like, okay, that's that brewer telling me this is a premium product. I've put my name on this and I want to try it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, obviously I love like Fremont does some amazing ones. I've had, the Black Tuesdays cool.
We have a brewery here. Did you know we have a brewery in Idaho?
You have a couple, I think.
No, we have the brewery.
The brewery. Oh, I didn't know that.
Black Tuesday, yeah. We have the brewery here with barrel aged beers. They have barrels that they're pouring off of that you can go get a sampler of. You should come down here. Come down here.
Was that in Boise? Yeah, I need to come check that out.
You're invited. I have a guest room. You're fine.
Yes.
Get you down here. But yeah, okay. Black Tuesday. What else?
Oh, I don't know. Like Firestone's obviously got a really good one. I kind of think they're kind of top of
Parabola.
They're kind of, yeah. I feel like Parabola is kind of the class, to be honest. At least the measuring stick.
Yeah, I think that a few of them that used to be kind of the awesome ones have there's been a little bit of waning because I think they've tried to keep up with other people, to be honest. Like, I think the Abyss is still pretty good. Like, but the Abyss, they do a lot of different variants now that aren't like my favorite. But I think Deschutes still does a great job with the Abyss. But I feel like also with the Abyss, you can't drink it the day you buy it. You have to put that thing. I feel like you have to lay that thing down for a year at least, like maybe 2 years.
Yeah. Does that frustrate you as a beer buyer?
That's interesting. It doesn't frustrate me, but it would frustrate me if I was not me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if I was somebody else that didn't lay beers down, didn't have a cellar, and didn't do all that stuff, yes, it would frustrate me greatly. That not only that, but the price points now are crazy. Fremont, you talk about Fremont, their beers used to be $15 to $20 for a Dark Star or for the Abominable or not Abominable, but whatever that winter one is called, and all the other ones they did, they're all good. Now they're $30 to $35. I mean, it's insane. Like, it's a crazy price point, and they're still doing bottles, which is fine. But I kind of like that you guys went to cans for the Big Bad. Like, I think it makes sense for that product. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah.
And it's easier for me to drink one by myself as opposed to, with the 22, I'd have to open it up and find at least, I'd have to go grab neighbors out of their houses and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a couple for me. I like AleSmith. I like Speedway Stout. That's one that I really love. And we just got that. We just started getting that here in Idaho. So if you need some Speedway Stout, let me know. It's in 16-ounce cans now as well. Ooh. So great minds thinking alike. Yeah. But for me, the one that always comes up like as a memory kind of thing is Stone's Russian Imperial Stout. That for me is like, and it comes out in the summer, which is kind of fun and weird. And it's just that, to me, that beer is hoppy and malty and dark and big and bold. And it's just like to me, that's like a big, like, awesome beer. I really love that beer.
Yeah. Does Stone still make that one?
I don't know. I don't know. I live perpetually in like 2003. So
yeah, Mitch still brews it. Like
Mitch is there. My buddy Greg is still there. Chris Baker is still. Yeah, all the guys are still there. Yeah, that's right. So we're gonna do one more beer. I'm gonna just finish. I'm drinking the old fashioned. I found my glass. So for everybody, I found my tumbler. I got this at Brewers Haven last year at a Big Bad Baptist release party that I went to. That old fashioned is really good. And I drink the old fashioned out of the glass because I wanted to get that orange, and you really do. That orange pops. So we're going to talk about the Black Gold. Sorry, as I adjust my earpiece here. The Black Gold. Go ahead. Actually, you just talk. Tell me what this is. And here it is. I'll put it up. There it is right there, Black Gold. This was formerly known as Brewers Keep or Brewers, what was it?
Brewmaster's Keep last year.
Why did we change the name, first of all?
I wasn't in the meeting for that.
That wasn't a meeting that you were a part of. It was Gus and Callie and
I think so. I just like the name Black Gold, and so I was just.
It's a fine name, but Brewmaster's Keep was fine too. I mean, they're all fine.
They are. Maybe we'll bring back Brewmaster's Keep, but I liked Black Gold this year.
Don't tease me. Go ahead and tell me about this beer.
Yeah. So. We try like every year to like put together the absolute best barrels possible. Like and I did, like I talked about earlier, about changing recipes for beers that I know that are destined for certain barrels. Like these barrels, I knew we were getting very, very fresh from a distillery.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew we were going to have a ton of whiskey flavor. And I kind of built the recipe around that. I wanted the beer to have a little extra sweetness to it, but still a ton of booze. And so we went extremely high with starting gravity. And
Well,
in due course, yeast eventually gives up regardless of sugar content. And that was by design. Like I wanted this beer to finish a little sweet, but still be in the neighborhood of 12% going into the barrels.
What's the ABV on this one?
14.7.
Nice.
Yeah,
well
so
done.
it's basically wine in a can.
Oh my God. You did it.
No, but it was by design. I knew it was gonna be huge. The target was 14.5, but like obviously with barrel-aged beers, it's a little bit of like horseshoes and hand grenades,
You got to have goals.
Yeah. So it ended up at 14.7, and I'm really glad that we built in that like extra malt sweetness from starting with a really high, starting gravity, and then eventually.
So you have one there, right? So
I
you didn't have to double batch this one, right?
No.
Single batch.
Single batch, but extremely long boils.
What were we talking about? 90 minutes? 2 hours?
Oh no, more like 3 to 4 hours.
No shit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what would have happened? Let me just tell you a little story. And Dave, you can stop listening right now. If Kevin or Rio or anybody that was there at the time would have said to Dave, "Hey, we're gonna make a stout, but it's gonna be a 3-hour boil," Dave would have picked up. He would have grabbed the paddle, one of the paddles, and he would have smacked everybody on their little butts with the paddle.
For a brewer just standing up there watching a 3-hour boil.
Yeah,
4 hours
to pay 2 brewers to sit and watch a 3-hour boil. Yeah, he would have beat us to death with a stick. That's what would happen. All right, Dave, you can start listening again. Dave, turn it on now. Just kidding. That's all in good fun. But okay, so we're gonna try the Black Gold. So I got it right here. I found by the way, I already said this before. I found my tumbler. Very happy about that. I get like, my God, it's very sweet on the nose. I get that tobacco. I get the leather. I get that burnt marshmallow. I get I don't get any booze, which is it makes me a little scared because that means I've been drinking Big Bad Baptist for the last hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, almost every barrel in this blend
that is freaking
vanilla. Thick. Like vanilla was the big descriptor from the barrel aged character.
A lot of vanilla in this one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Tell us what I'm tasting. You can do it better than me.
For me, it's big vanilla sweetness, and then like after that, like kind of subsides for a second. I get the like whiskey and the booze kind of like dissipates the sweetness a little bit, and then like the nuance of the barrel is in the finish. Like
for nobody that's ever had the head brewer of a brewery talk about what you're tasting as you're tasting it, you should do it. It's great. It's a really great. It's probably maybe the 3rd or 4th time it's happened for me, but like for you guys out there, you should just find a head brewer somewhere and have them do it because he just basically explained everything. I would also say that there's like there's that umami. There's definitely that umami. It's thick. This is like Megan the Stallion. Like it's thick. It's
beer's
nice.
Got body.
And yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is a baddie beer for sure. And it's got just like so much. There's like, what am I getting? There's a burning on the back end, and I know it's the alcohol, but
do you think that's almost the whiskey?
It's yeah. So Clay and I are going to do another show from here on out. It's just going to be Clay and I drink beer on Zoom, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah,
weekly, bi-weekly.
We'll do it like daily. Why not? So yeah, it's got a little bit of whiskey in there, but the burn that I get is more. I think it's that roastiness that you were talking about before. Like it's like that. It's like the end of it's like when you drink out of the barrel. Like it is like that. Like when you get that one barrel that goes off that's like 16 or 17%, the weird one. It's
Uh-huh.
that. It's that like roasty, burny, alcohol-y kind of booziness. My spider senses are tingling like crazy. But like it's so thick and it's so this is probably the I gotta think it's like the booziest beer that Epic's ever produced, right?
I think it probably like I could look back on if
I
we've
can't
ever
think of
released a
another
beer
one.
higher than 14.7, but I don't think we have.
So it's got a lot going on, is what I'm saying. And it looks beautiful in the glass too. It's freaking inky black, and it's got this like kind of caramel colored head on it. It's just a really, I mean, you guys can see it. There it is right there. Looks great. Anyway, and then it almost like a in raisin. I get like raisin and
Yeah.
date, and
Raisin and date is a very popular term for when we're doing those barrel sensories.
yeah. So yeah, let me get my okay. So yeah, I get a lot of that like raisin and date for sure. Uh, and then sort of talk about. I mean, we have a few more minutes here. Oh, yeah, we have a lot more. So go ahead and talk about just like you know, um, when you look when you're sort of start at the beginning. So you got there in what just recently, right? Like May or June or something.
January, yeah.
Oh, you got there all the way back in January. Okay.
Came back
So
in January.
did they give you the list of the big bads that they were already doing like then, or when did you get the list?
Yeah, back then. So Jordan and I started talking about, because Jordan stayed on for another, 4 months or so.
It
And
should be
so
noted, Jordan's a great dude,
very good dude.
and he lives all the way up in fucking Vermont, right?
He does. Yeah. Moved all the way. I think he got like 10 acres in Vermont. Like he's chilling out there.
Did he get a mule?
Yeah, I think he's planning on using his land and like doing some like homesteading. So like
Can't wait
I'm
for that.
honestly jealous.
Uh, you know, it's an interesting Vermont or Utah is a very fun game. We could play that game, I think. But
Yeah.
so you get a list of these things. So what is your thought process as to the like just the largeness of the vastness of this job?
Yeah, Big Bad Baptist, I would say, is like my focus for 6 months out of the year, if not
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
Um, it's
yeah. Pfeifferhorn Lager isn't going to take the I don't have to think
yeah,
about
but
it.
that's the beer that I like. I love that beer, and that's the
We
beer I
all
drink all
love
summer.
Pfeifferhorn Lager. We all love it, but we're talking about Big Bad Baptist.
That's
So he
true.
gives you this list, or you get this list, you see it, and what were your first thoughts as to that? And then how soon are you picking out barrels that are going to go into black gold? How soon?
My first thought is, essentially how can we execute this? Fortunately, for something that we consider like our highest end product, I don't get any pushback basically on whatever ingredients I want to use. Doesn't really matter how expensive they are. This is a beer we're selling for a premium price. It's just we're going to make it as good as possible.
That's great.
So that's awesome. Like I feel like I can attack this with like no handcuffs. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
just essentially how can I execute this flavor profile we're targeting and do it in a brewery obviously, but like figuring out whatever it is, like is it there's some really amazing products on the market that you can find, but is it really just like breaking apart bananas and throwing them in the boil, like
Or
trying everything
fermenting
essentially?
bananas.
Yeah, like it's something that Peter and Dave grant me a ton of time to do whatever I want to try and make Big Bad Baptist as good as it possibly can, and it's one of the big reasons I came back to Epic, honestly. But it's
Let's talk about. I mean, go ahead. Finish your thought there.
oh
Sorry.
no, I was just saying it's just so it's just the biggest part of my job is just making sure Big Bad Baptist is amazing every year.
I'm so glad that they treat the brewers so nicely. Sales. So you just kidding. I'm just joking. So we have black gold, cinnamon roll, salted maple, old fashioned, cherry bliss, and chocolate banana here. We didn't get to try cherry bliss or cinnamon roll, so let's talk about those ones. talk about Cherry Bliss for a little bit and tell me about that one. Tell me what's going on there, and kind of what the thought process was there.
Yeah, thank you. Cherry Bliss. We originally were trying to call it Cherry Bliss. Cherry. Oh, now name's slipping me. Oh man, I've had too many Big Bad Baptists. Cherry Cordial. We were originally going to call it Cherry Cordial, but the TTB did not like us using cordial.
Oh, the TTB. Here they come.
So we had to switch to Cherry Bliss. Anyway.
Do you know that Trump just nominated Jack Daniels in charge of the TTB? Did you hear about that? Yeah, he's going to be in charge of it. Anyway, go ahead. Cherry Bliss.
Yeah, it's essentially like the inspiration is like those maraschino cherries covered in chocolate.
Okay.
So like imagine that in Imperial Stout, and so like that was the North Star for that brand, and like it's exactly like that.
Okay.
Very good. Like that one's been very popular. People seem to really enjoy it. I would say it's slightly sweeter than any of the brands we tried today. Not by a lot. Like I in general think pastry stouts or flavored barrel-aged imperial stouts should not be overly sweet. And I think I've toned that down a little bit this year.
What do you think about my thing? I have a thing that I've talked about where the dessert stout, the pastry stout, is sort of like the hazy IPA, in that they're not super bitter. They're just all flavor.
I've never heard that before. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That's really like, yeah. Do you like these beers?
Pastry stouts?
Yeah.
Not particularly, no. They're not my favorite.
Have you ever had what's your favorite one you've ever
had? Templin had one out that was pretty good.
Oh, that one was pretty good.
I don't remember the name of it. You guys had a Big Bad Baptist last year that I liked a lot. That was, I want to say, sea salt and caramel or something like that.
That one
was pretty good. I like them when they're tempered down. I don't like them when they're just full on. So is the cinnamon roll also in that sort of vein? Is it a pastry stout sort of like that?
I would say that's like inspired pastry stout, but
yeah,
if anybody's trying it that's having, breweries that advertise their beers as pastry stouts, like it's not that sweetness level.
For me, I'm old. I like stouts that are bitter. I like the bitterness. I think that you need balance. This show is sponsored by Like Button and likebutton.us. Looking to make a splash with your next ad campaign, but don't have the time to set up ads on Google, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Bing, Cheddarboy, Yahoo, LinkedIn, DuckDuckGo, RazorSharp, Instagram, all the digital platforms that you have to get to out there. Oh, goodness. Like Button will get your campaigns going on these platforms and put together a strategic ad plan that makes sense for your company, not some cookie cutter campaign built for somebody else. Each strategy built from the ground up, tailored for your business. Get back to doing what you love. Leave the rest to Like Button at likebutton.us. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm Steve Kuntz. Friday Night Pints is here. Let's see, what do we have today? Oh, we've got a couple of stouts that I went over to the brewery to check out. Saw my boy Jimbo. Jimbo is doing a special thing at the brewery. They're doing a 12 days of Christmas thing. You know what? I'll just let him explain it. Here's Jimbo's little voice message that he left me. Check this out. Jimbo, take it away.
Hey, Steve. This is Jimbo Wood with the brewery. Thought it'd be easier just to call you than to text you. Yeah, the 12 days of Christmas beers. So, we have the exclusive rights to each of the 12 days of Christmas from a beer naming perspective. So we'll start with Partridge in a Pear Tree on Black Friday. And then the second beer in the series will be released on December 2nd. And then be released every day on draft all the way through December 12th. We'll release the last beer on December 12th. For everybody that comes in and tries the beers, we're doing a 12 days of Christmas passport. So basically, every time you come in and sample one of the beers, you get a stamp on the passport. On the 13th, we're doing a raffle and a party. So everybody that's come in and sampled each of the beers brings their passport. They exchange their passport for a ticket. Every stamp that you have equals one ticket. So if you've come in for all 12 beers, you get 12 tickets entered into a raffle, and the raffle is for a 12 Days of Christmas bottle box set. So, yeah.
All right. So easy enough, right? Go in and there's new beers for the next 12 days. Sounds pretty awesome. So go check that out over at the brewery in Meridian. So a couple of beers that they had over there. This one I would get over today and try out if they still have it. It's just a little firkin. So this one is a blend of 20% stout and 80% double mash barley wine blended with pecans aged in bourbon barrels. It's a lot going on in there. This one for 15%, I'm getting like very little heat. Like it's not hot at all. The booze is very well hidden behind. Also, this thing also blended with milk chocolate and brown sugar. So you got milk chocolate, brown sugar, 20% stout, 80% double mash barley wine, and pecans aged in bourbon barrels, all in a little firkin. I don't know how that thing isn't exploding. Raisin, tobacco, soy. And now that you've learned all about that from Clay, you know what I'm talking about when I say tobacco and soy. But that's what we're getting in the nose in this one. Raisin, tobacco, soy, and chocolate right there on the nose. Chocolate and raisin go nicely together with the pecan, almost like a cookie or something. The inspiration was a bourbon pecan pie. So I would say nailed it. 15.1% ABV on a firkin at the brewery. Next is this one's called 3, and there's like a number 3 where the R should be. Very clever. So this is a blend, another blend over there at the brewery. This is Black Tuesday, Three Chiefs barley wine, which is a different brewery, and then the Brewery Anniversary Ale, which is another barley wine. So 2 barley wines with Black Tuesday. This one, raisin, overripened fruit, and coffee on the nose. And the coffee's like barely there, almost like a light roast sort of deal. The barley wine comes through on this beer with raisin, plum, fruit cake, all there on the palate, with a bit of dark roast coffee and a pretty good kick of booze. This one, unlike the firkin, is a fire breather. You get all sorts of booze here. To me, this one's almost like a cocktail. It's almost like a barley wine cocktail because they took these 2 barley wines. I don't know what the ABV was on them, but I'm sure it wasn't low. And then they blended it with their famous Black Tuesday, which is their famous stout that they have. And the beer looks like a stout. Like in the glass, it's black. But when you taste it, it's a barley wine. I mean, that's what you get, mostly barley wine. So to me, it's almost like a barley wine cocktail. They're using that Black Tuesday in place of vodka or whiskey or whatever to kind of give it that oomph, that 15.9% ABV. You can get that on tap at the brewery. So we have a couple of returning champions out there. Came out today, or maybe 12 gauge came out earlier in the week. Anyway, Payette's yearly 12 gauge barrel aged Imperial Stout is out. That one is 11%. And they have the barrel-aged version, and these are all in 12-ounce cans, it looks like. So 12 gauge, usually pretty decent. It's got sort of a residual sweetness to it that isn't bad. The hopping on there, to me, can always be a little bit more, but it's a nice Imperial Stout. Check out that 12 gauge around town and at Payette. And then they did a couple of variants of it. Looks like they have 2024 Horchata barrel-aged Imperial Stout. So I guess it's the Imperial Stout with cinnamon and vanilla to sort of mimic that horchata flavor. That one is also 11%, and over there at Payette and around town, wherever you can find it, in 12-ounce cans. And then they have, looks like the brewery has released, the Payette Brewery has released the 2023 Imperial Stout as well, so you can go check that out, get that one. And then they have a 2023 Choco Coconut Macadamia Nut Barrel-Aged Imperial Stout. There's a lot going on in there. And so those are all 11%. And I guess you can get those 2023s over there at Payette. And the 2024 is obviously out now, and those should be kind of everywhere around town. Also, another returning champion. We talked a little bit about it last week. Barbarian has their Imperial Stout out. It's called the Morrigan. And the Morrigan, to me, is easily my second or third favorite beer that they make. It's usually just got this. I haven't had a chance to try this year's yet, but I'm aching to do it because I really do love that beer. So it's got like a really subtle sweetness to it. It's almost like I don't know what barrels. I think one year they aged it in red wine barrels, so it had this really like nice kind of over-ripened fruit almost in it. And this year's looks like it's going to be back to that roasty kind of big barrely variety. It's 12%, so it's got a little bit of kick to it, and you can get that at both Barbarian locations. I would recommend getting that, and then trying that Black and Tan we talked about last week with the peppermint beer. So they have a peppermint golden stout out there as well, so you can kind of blend those together and get a little Black and Tan. Give it a try, see what you think. You only live once. And then Brown Beard is re-releasing Sins of Our Fathers. This today was their little event that they did. And this was a beer that was made by our good friends at Crooked Fence. And they are taking that and re-releasing it in their own Black Friday event today, I guess. And you can go check that out over at the brewery at Brown Beard in Garden City. They also have another stout out called the Beard Labruski. Awesome name, Brown Beard. Well played. 8.6% ABV. This one is a golden stout with lactose. It's aged on coffee beans and vanilla beans on bourbon oak. So check those out as well. And then other stouts that are kind of out and around town that I wanted to talk about. Man, so many good ones out right now. Of course, you can't really, start without, you can't really talk about yearly released barrel-aged stouts until you start talking about our good friends at Goose Island with their Bourbon County brand stout. This one, always a fun beer to get. It's always, pretty tasty. Ever since Bud bought it, I know people are really down on it, but it's always good beer. It's never bad. So this year, it looks like they have a couple different varieties or variants out. They have a vanilla rye stout. Sounds pretty good. And then they have a macaroon stout. So you can get those at Whole Foods starting today and anywhere else where they sell Bourbon County. I saw one on at Good Apple the other night, the wheat wine variant. So also kind of fun. AleSmith has their barrel-aged Speedway stout out. This is coffee cake edition. And like I was talking about earlier, Speedway stout, one of the good ones. That beer is in 16-ounce cans and singles at Whole Foods if you want to pick that up. Grand Teton has their Dark Descent Stout out. This is their yearly Imperial Stout, along with Black Cauldron. Black Cauldron, I think, out all year round. This one is a one-off from Grand Teton. Check that out. Dark Descent Stout. Sounds good. Love Grand Teton. Love what they're doing. I hear they're brewing up some good stuff out there. So check that out from our friends in Victor. Also Black Cauldron. And then Michael Teeters sent me a picture of the Candy Cane Nitro Imperial Peppermint Milk Stout from Left Hand. I had this one last year, and it is what it is. It definitely is a candy cane peppermint milk stout. And if that's what you're into, God bless you. And then AleSmith has a 4-pack out of Grand Prix Speedway Stouts. These are all variants of just the Imperial Stout, not barrel-aged. I tried the Rocky Road one last night with walnuts, Madagascar, vanilla beans, coffee, and looks like roasted almonds and cocoa nibs. Really, really good. It was 12%. They're really thick, big beers. But man, Speedway Stout, you can't do much worse, or you can't do much better than that as far as a beer goes. As far as a big stout, just awesome. And that 4-pack, I think, was like $16 or $17. So it wasn't cheap, but very tasty. I'm looking forward to trying the rest of those beers. There's a chocolate raspberry one. There is a maple bar, and there's a toasted coconut Vietnamese coffee one, which I will probably save for last because that sounds amazing. Let's see, what else? Lagunitas has its willetized coffee stout out. If you had it, you know what it is. This is one of those big, aggressive stouts. Big coffee, big barrel, big hops. This one made with willet barrels, and they blend in. I know they blend in rye whiskey in there as well. So yeah, get your hands on that. Lagunitas' yearly willetized coffee stout. Also, probably the best deal in barrel-aged Imperial Stout. I think that 6-pack is like $12.99. So get your hands on that one. We also had, what else did I see out there? That's a lot right there. So you can get your hands on those. Fremont has its Dark Star out. You can grab that as well. And some other locals. We should be seeing Boise Brewing's barrel-aged Black Cliffs out here pretty soon. I got to think it's out either now or should be out soon. Anyway, if Lance is listening, anybody over there, you can reach out to me and let me know what's going on with that. So that'll do it for Friday Night Pints. Lots of good stuff out there. And we'll be right back to close up the show right after this. Friday Night Pints is brought to you by Idaho Brewers United. Did you hear? IBU is going digital with the new Idaho Brewers Trail app. It used to be a map, and now it's an app. Want to know if your favorite beer is on tap at your favorite brewery? Check the app. Want to earn points towards amazing prizes from local breweries? Check the app. Need to get that hot goss going on in the brewing industry? Check the app, people. Be the first on your block to have the app by signing up for the Idaho Brewers United Brew newsletter at idahobrewers.org. Go to idahobrewers.org, sign up for the newsletter today, and get the app. Welcome back to the Idaho Booze Podcast. I'm Steve Kuntz, and that is it for Black Friday, the Super Stout Edition. What a show. Man, Clay Turnbow, first and foremost, thanks to him. Thanks to Gus over there at Epic Brewing for sending me all those Big Bad Baptists. They were delicious. I can't wait to try the cinnamon roll one and the cherry bliss one. Hey, you know what? Crazier things have happened. That banana one was really good. We weren't just playing a game there. Like Clay and I, we're not real good at acting. Like that's not sort of our forte. So that banana one, I mean, if you see it out there, pick it up. Let me know what you think. If you don't like it, drop me a note and I'll send you a t-shirt or something. I was saying we'll send you some beef jerky from Treasure Valley Chevron if you don't like it. So yeah, go ahead and pick that up. If you see it, grab it. I'm telling you, there's always money in the banana stand. Always money in the banana stand. So thanks a lot to Clay Turnbow and to Gus over at Epic Brewing for coming on the show today and talking stout with me. Thanks a lot to Michael Teeter for sending me a bunch of those picks from Whole Foods. You guys get, if you need to get a barrel-aged Imperial Stout, you can't. I mean, Whole Foods has them all. They have a ton of great stuff over there, and their prices aren't too bad on beer. So go check that out. And then if you need any other like kind of big stouts or anything like that, there's other places around the state that you can go as well. You know where your favorite spots are around the state. There's awesome. They have pretty much every little town in Idaho has a nice little bottle shop where you can go get something good for the holiday season. And I can't recommend those Speedway stouts enough, man. AleSmith, they do a real good job. 12 gauge, also really good. That Morrigan from Barbarian, awesome beer. So lots of good Imperial stouts out there for you guys to chew on. It's been an awesome episode. Want to thank Treasure Valley Chevron. Want to thank Boise Beer Buddies. Want to thank Idaho Brewers United and Like Button for sponsoring the show. Really appreciate you guys and appreciate all you guys out there listening to the show. Thank you so much. I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Hope you're having a good Black Friday. And I would love to hear from you. IdahoBoozePod@gmail.com. You can get a hold of me there, or you can get a hold of me at The Daily Beard on X and Instagram, and at Steve Kuntz on Facebook. So that's going to do it from here. I'm Steve Kuntz. This has been the Idaho Booze Podcast. Good day and good drinking, everyone.